Okay.
Hello, everybody. This is Pam,
And John?
and we're not done yet.
No.
But we're lifting our martinis and toasting you to another little chat with us. Cheers, my dears. And today we're talking about a number of things that John's conversation with me a week ago brought up, because he brought up President Garfield and how he might have survived his assassination if medical science had been more focused on sanitation and sterilization, etc., etc. So you want to tell us a little bit about
I just want to say that he was in a train station and he was shot twice by an assassin. And one of the bullets just grazed him, but the other bullet went into, I think he was shot in the back, and it severed a vertebrae, and then it lodged somewhere near his abdomen. And so he didn't die right away. I mean, he had about at least 2 agonizing months where he was alive and in just horrible pain and incapacity. And they brought the best surgeons in the world at that time. I think it was in the 18, I don't have the date in front of me, 1890s. And these top surgeons, they felt that the most urgent thing they had to do was find the bullet. And it wasn't obvious where the bullet was. They saw a bullet hole, and so the top surgeon just started probing in there with his fingers. And he didn't wash his hands. And he was probing day after day, brought in a couple more who did the same thing, and they opened the wound way up to probe further, and none of them washed their hands. They just go on to their next job, and they didn't understand the need for sterilization and cleanliness. And so, yeah, I think he lived at least 2 months in that agonizing state. And the actual person that did the assassination, who got caught, he said, well, he didn't really die from my bullet. He died from the doctors putting their hands in his wound all the time, and that killed him. So he may have been right in that. But anyway, that's just a little aside on poor President Garfield, who a lot of people thought would have been one of our greatest presidents. So, okay.
Okay, so that took us a couple different directions. One was getting clear about the difference between a bacterial infection and a viral infection. So John looked into that, and I did a little bit of research about when did the advancements in medical care move into identifying that there were germs and there were ways you could combat them. So for those of you who are interested, now we will learn from Mr. John about the difference between bacterial infections and viral infections and why it's important to know the difference.
Yeah, well, both are caused by microbes, both viral and bacterial. And they're spread by things such as coughing, sneezing, contact with infected people, contact with infected, contaminated surfaces, food, water, and that sort of thing. But the bacterial and viral infections can cause mild, moderate, or severe diseases. In recent time, viral infections have been responsible for the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Those were all viral infections rather than bacterial. And the symptoms can be quite similar from both virus and bacterial. But I got to read some of my notes here. Pardon the noise. Most bacteria infections don't really cause disease. I mean, they're uncomfortable, but people a lot of times require recuperate from them without any intervention.
No viral, right?
No, bacterial.
Really?
Yeah. And with the advent of,
Hmm.
what am I trying to say, antibiotics, they're cured with antibiotics for
Oh, yeah, yeah.
bacteria,
Mhm.
but antibiotics don't do anything for viruses. So it's really a mistake when people beg for. I lost my train of thought here.
Antibiotics.
Antibiotics when they have a virus, because the antibiotics are not going to help viruses. And viruses do cause disease, and they're quite specific about the cells they attack, such as cells in the liver, respiratory system, or blood. Common bacterial infections include strep throat, Lyme disease, salmonella, impetigo, E. coli, chlamydia, and gonorrhea. Common viral infections most often affect your respiratory and digestive systems, but can cause problems with other parts of your body. Uh,
See, I've always thought that bacterial infections were way worse than viral infections, but that's the opposite of what's true.
yeah, a high percentage of bacterial infections don't cause any problems. In fact, they just cure themselves with time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but antibiotics
didn't
help
understand
speed up
that.
the curing. So
Wow.
yeah. So and how long virus infections last depend on what type of virus causes it. Hepatitis can cause chronic health problems that last years. And HIV can't be cured. It's a lifelong infection, viral infection. Antibiotics can be used, like we said, to treat bacterial infections, but are no help at all for viral infections. So, since the beginning of the 20th century, vaccines have been developed to combat many viruses such as polio, measles, and chickenpox. In addition, vaccines can prevent infections such as the flu, hepatitis B. Uh, Symptoms can be pretty similar from viral and bacterial infections, making it difficult to distinguish between them when they first start. Tests might be required. Uh, and that's just a real broad, simplistic view of bacterial and viral infections and their differences and the differences in how you treat them.
And the fact that, so if I had a cold, you can't really treat it.
No,
But if I have strep throat, you give me penicillin and I'm going to be fine in a couple days.
probably.
Huh. I always thought, well, I never thought about it quite that way. And I guess if there is really identified treatment like antibiotics, then that would make bacterial infections less dangerous. And viral, they don't even know what to do about because.
Well, recently they've developed antiviral medication, and that was available during COVID, and I forget the name of it, but there was an antiviral, and I had COVID.
Is that like that thing you take to make it go away faster?
Yeah, and I took that.
Yeah, I took that.
And it made it go away, the COVID go away very quickly, but then within 3 days, the COVID came back, or a new COVID came to me and just knocked me right off my feet, and I was as sick as I was originally. So the antiviral, I guess, wasn't very successful for me for COVID, but I know that it was for an awful lot of other people
Yeah,
too.
it was for me.
I can't remember the name of it right now, but
Something.
yeah,
Paxlovid?
yeah, Paxlovid, yeah.
Interesting.
And viruses cause polio, like I said, measles, chickenpox, polio, and so that's that.
Well, so I went down the route of if, in terms of the Garfield assassination, and death by medical professionals, if that was the case, to see when things really started changing. And I'm sure there's many versions of this, but it was in the 1840s that a fella, I think it was a doctor in Hungary, whose name was too complicated, so I didn't write it down. He really identified that hand washing was a key factor in preventing illness. And he learned this by specifically the relationship of a doctor that would go from performing an autopsy to then delivering a baby without washing their hands, and the effects that had on the mother and child. That's a really condensed version of what he did, but it grabbed my attention, I have to say. I did want to, maybe before I just go through some of the other high points, just clarify that when we talk about sterilization, you watch the medical shows on TV and they do two things. MASH is where I learned about is it the autoclave or something like that, where they put the equipment, the tools, the surgical, the knives, the clamps in a machine where heat sterilizes them. And then the hand washing, how many lives have been discussed and relationships ended over the hand washing on Grey's Anatomy or ER. Lots. So sterilization, it destroys all forms of microbial life. So it kills all the bad things. And it's done using heat, chemicals, or radiation. Now, we all know about disinfectants, especially having gone through the pandemic, and colds too. You hear about that. Make sure in the cold season, your doorknobs, clean your doorknobs, wipe the phone, those different things. It eliminates or inactivates most types of microorganisms, such as viruses, fungi, and bacteria. But it doesn't kill resistant bacterial spores. And disinfectants are chemical agents, chemical agents in heat, which reduce the risk of infection, but they don't obliterate the bad guys like sterilization does. So back to after the guy in Hungary who determined and began the movement for frequent hand washing among those people treating patients, especially those that are doing surgery, cleaning wounds and so forth. We'll come to the 1860s, and Louis Pasteur, who was a French chemist and microbiologist, and he wrote about how germs cause disease. And germs was a concept, the fact of germs was a concept that was really slowly received by medical practitioners, that something invisible could be actually making people sick. Joseph Lister, and I just decided that's how Listerine got its name, must be from Joseph. He was English, a physician in England, and he developed a technique that used carbolic acid as a spray to disinfect things. I guess people's surfaces, I'm not sure. And that's where we get the modern day antiseptic. So antiseptic ointment or those little things you can wipe on your hands, that sort of thing. Now we'll get to the United States finally in 1888, the late 1800s. Johnson & Johnson, that company we all know, helped with the introduction of the concept of sterilization or sterilizing surgery. And the thing that they did that was really big in terms of moving a more safe medical protocols, moving those forward, was to create a manual, the first one apparently, First of its kind educational manual, and the title was Modern Methods of Antiseptic Wound Treatment. And so this concept that Joseph Lister had addressed about germs and Pasteur, well, this was new. It was hard for people to believe. Hard for medical professionals to understand that this invisible germ could be causing post-surgery infections, which actually killed the people that doctors were trying to save. And Robert Wood Johnson, I was interested to see that name because as a professional in human services for most of my career, that Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is instrumental in fostering advancements across the continuum of medical, physical, mental, and healthcare in general. So Robert Wood Johnson and his brothers really moved the whole system forward with sterilizing sutures, aseptic gauze, and now you can buy Band-Aids that have antibiotics or antiseptic creams in them, and you can stick them on your wound. And the whole concept of antiseptic spray, that was then introduced here in the United States. The other thing I thought was really interesting in looking into this is that hand washing, of course, was a big thing. I mean, they were really pushing that with doctors. Their manual put that front and center. The other thing was, how doctors always wear white coats? Well, up until Johnson and the Johnson brothers did this manual, they wore black coats. And so the idea of having a white coat was to make it really clear if they had contaminants, or clearer. Certainly blood would show up better on a white coat. So that was something that happened in the late 1800s, which was really part of making medicine, the practice of medicine, safer for the patient. So that's what I got.
Okay. Well, I think that the discovery that just properly cleaning your hands and your probing instruments that the surgeons were using to find bullets oftentimes could make such a huge difference in the infection rate and saving lives of because a lot of people had bullet holes in them back then. There were duels and just a lot of bullets flying around, I guess. And that made such a huge difference in the discovery of germs in microbes. And I think maybe the microscopes had something to do with that discovery, but we're not going into that. But that was such a big discovery, kind of a revolutionary discovery, really. And in that something as simple as thorough hand washing and washing your surgical equipment could make such a huge difference in saving a life or having a patient die.
Yeah.
It was quite revolutionary, really.
It really,
yeah.
I know. And I was sort of actually dissolved into hysterics over the idea of addressing science in these talks. But even this time, I was sitting with a friend of mine who is a retired nurse practitioner, OBGYN, and we were talking about this, and she said, well, these, especially hand washing and sterilization, made a huge change in obstetrics. So I looked into it a little bit, and it did drastically reduce maternal and infant mortality rates. And this thing that was quite prevalent in the in the 1800s and early 1900s called child bed fever. Peripheral? No, Puerperal. Fever, child bed fever. I'd never heard of that, but apparently it cost many mothers and their children their lives. And it was out of the movement, the push for protocols related to hygiene, that was really revolutionary, not only in obstetrics, but across all the fields, routine medical care. So we're all the luckier for these smart people out there that made these changes. And thank you, John, for bringing this as a topic.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
What else would you like to say about Garfield or anyone else?
I just think that was such the simple act of just cleaning yourself up,
Yeah.
washing well what you wear, changing the color to white so you could see obvious blood stains and that sort of thing on it, and washing your hands and wearing some kind of cover so you don't sneeze on your patient when you're got them open, and just all those things which individually seem like simple acts, but taken together just made such a huge difference in the mortality and immortality rates. I think it's astounding, really.
Yeah, me too.
And then follow up with the discovery of antibiotics and antivirals and some of the other discoveries that came during the next. Penicillin was a big one.
And that was in the
1928, I think, penicillin was discovered. And that was a really big one. And, some other ones. So it's fairly recent. 1928, that's less than 100 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of shocking.
Yeah.
I think the scientific advancements have just grown by leaps and bounds and created new specialties in medicine and engineering and so many things. At any rate, I guess maybe we'll talk about those in the future.
Well, maybe. Yeah, we'll see. I think we'll get off it for a while here, but
no, I heard tell that you wrote a song.
A song? Oh, to lead us off.
Yeah. You want to hear a song?
Yeah, we're all done. We're all done. This is just 2 bars. I mean,
that's
we're
good.
all done.
We'll take 2 bars.
Okay. Me. We know a little bit about a lot of things, but we don't know enough about you. Oh, keep those cards and letters coming in, and give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you think. And comment would be nice. And then also you can subscribe. And I don't think there's any strings attached to subscribing.
No string.
I don't know what the benefits are really. Do they get notice of our talks?
They do, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's about it. No prizes or anything like that. But anyway, so if you want to subscribe. Anyway, I hope this hasn't been too boring. I know the building we live in has a lot of nurses in it, so they probably know all this stuff and a lot more, I'm sure. But anyway, thanks for being with us.
Yeah,
we've enjoyed it.
Yeah,
so
thanks for sharing it.
Yeah,
with us. I learned a lot.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Adios.